you ran out of love. Every love is bound to maintain it. You got to knock the legs with an eye. Don't throw a stone, you don't know. Stop what you say, it's what you do. Don't throw your stone.
Hello, welcome back to Out on That Line. This is Geoff Greenmore, along with my co-host Alex Koch. Alex, how are you this week?
I'm hanging in there, Jeff. How are you doing?
I'm doing very well. A little hot down here in Texas, but I think with the albums we got this week, Tyler Childers, Country Squire, Caroline Rose, Superstar, kind of matches the temperature down here for me. You know, these were two good ones for me.
These were two hot albums. Yes,
two
correct.
hot albums. So what do you say? We get right into it. We're excited with kind of the way things are going so far, so let's keep on rolling. We're going to start with the Tyler Childers Country Squire album. I believe we were both somewhat familiar with this one to start with. Maybe me more so. I'm a big Tyler Childers fan, but I had not really dove into this album as much as the Purgatory album and some of the live stuff that he's released. So how familiar were you with this one coming into it?
I'm going to shock you here, Jeff, and tell you not at all. I had no idea that there was an album beyond Purgatory. That was all the material of his that I had listened to.
Yeah, well, he hasn't released a lot, so it's understandable. I don't remember it getting a ton of fanfare, certainly not as much as I think it deserved after an album like Purgatory, which I thought still is one that gets tons of plays for me. So I was excited this week to get into Country Squire and dive a little more into that one. So I guess let's start out, and since you were coming into it fresh, and I had my preconceived notions. Why don't you tell me what you thought?
Okay, that's a good salad. So I had really like the one like big defining thing for Tyler Childers for me is Feathered Indians. Mm-hmm. Feathered Indian. I just know very little about him. I am very much like a newbie to Tyler Childers. But I remember asking you a while ago. I was like, "Yo, I need some new albums to listen to. Can you recommend anything?" And Purgatory was one of them. And I definitely listened to Purgatory through multiple times. It's just that one goddamn song. And that first line just gets me. My buckle leaves impressions on the inside of her thigh. Like, come on, man. That's amazing. Yeah,
it's it was that song and White House Road from the Purgatory album that really kind of got me into Tyler Childers. Universal Sound from that album. I mean, it was a pretty broad-ranging kind of set of influence he had for it, so it was really kind of fresh. Every time you listened through that album, it kind of kept it fresh. It was really nice.
And I will say one... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Also produced by Sturgill Simpson, as is this one.
Man, Sturgill Simpson, he just, produces everyone. Do you have to have talent, or can, any asshole work for him? Because I would like to throw my hat in the ring, if so.
We're just the marionettes on Sturgill Simpson's string. That's all we are right now.
Sturgill's world, baby. We're all just renting the place.
Yeah. Back to Country Squire.
Yeah. So in terms of first impressions, going off of the Purgatory and Feathered Indian thing too, he has a really great knack for really evocative lyrics, and it's never too on the nose, which I really, really appreciate. Mm-hmm. So of course, the one that drew my eye the most on Country Squire was Ever Loving Hand. Is that what it's called?
Of course.
Yeah.
Of course. I knew that. I knew that was going to be the first one you talked about.
I mean, come on. I'm sitting there, and I did exactly what I did last week, which was one time through while you do an activity just to get the song in your DNA, and then one time through where you really sit and zero in on it. And I just remember I was sweeping while I was listening to that song, just kind of mindlessly at first. I'm like, is he talking about jacking off? I think this song is about jacking off in the hotel.
Big time.
Interesting.
Big time.
And then sure enough, I went back later and listened to it and had a good laugh. It was great. It wasn't, as a big Frank Zappa fan, sometimes people can go too far. Sometimes Frank Zappa's shit was literally like, pick a booger and eat it with your butt. And you're like, okay.
Is this satire, or is he just having a stroke right now?
Yeah, is this Frank, should we call someone, buddy? It's just raunchy for the sake of raunchy. But this I think, is a testament to his songwriting skills, where it just didn't feel like a throwaway. It's not the masturbation song off of the album. it's one of many really interesting songs about his life on the road and his artistry and his personal life. So I don't know.
Exactly.
I just was like, it's very cool that he managed to pull that off.
It could have easily gone into the detachable penis territory if you're familiar with that song. Everyone out there in listener land, whether you want to listen to that one or not, I don't know. It's a very crass song about exactly what the title says. But yes, Tyler Childers does have a way of saying those things that are, pretty crass. I mean, they got my favorite lotion here. Something in a hotel I admire. The first 2 lines of the song. And so immediately what he's talking about. I mean, and he's talking about his being away from his baby. He's like, hey, I told you I was going to be alone, so here I am. I got you on my mind in my ever-loving hand.
Man's got to eat, baby.
Yeah. I think that's a really good, that song in particular, I think really can let people know what Tyler Childers is about, as far as just saying something very simple, but like we were talking about with Casey Musgraves last week, delivering that in a very kind of complex way where it's not, like you were saying, too on the nose, just delivered in a way that's very clever.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
It's difficult to articulate for me because I have this weird relationship with music in terms of I know nothing about it from a technical standpoint. I can't be like, oh, they really arpeggiated well on this part and their arrangements of their melodic fifth. Like music theory, I guess, is so completely out the window for me, even though I've taken it and I've passed the class. I just bullshitted my way through it. And I regret that because I would have some language to be able to talk about some of the things that he does musically. But instead I have to opt for these like broader, almost not a compliment, not really an observation kind of statements. But it's the only way I know how to express myself. A long way of saying he kind of does what we were talking about with Casey Musgraves and to a lesser degree with Margo Price, which is this cosmic country, very psychedelic influenced sound. And it's interesting with him, and this is like a weird, corny art school thing to say, but it's really interesting how he manages to take the sound and give it like vocal characteristics. So it's almost like a dialogue between him and the instrumentation in a lot of ways. Like it's obviously not like the whine of a violin is not actually saying anything, but the way that he does it gives it a cadence that's almost like when a dog makes a noise and you're like, I know the dog is like, it sounds like he's saying, I want lasagna, that kind of thing. You kind of interpret a meaning. It's a very weird phenomenon. I don't know if any of that made sense, but
it does. And I think if I can try to condense it a little further, it's just the way he uses the music to convey that. It's kind of rare for folks to know how to do that. And within just a single song, he can swell up some strings and it brings a whole new emotion to that. Or it can just be stripped down, just stand-up bass and acoustic guitar. And I think he knows exactly which arrangement to use to elicit the emotion of the words that he's singing. And I think that's something that he's really strong at. And throughout this entire album, I think he does it really well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I completely agree. What would you say was your runaway favorite off the album? Do you have one?
So this one, so there were a few songs that I have been in my playlist for a while from this album. There was, I would say 80% of it I wasn't super familiar with, but these couple songs were ones that I am. All Yorn was one that I have been familiar with because I think that's been on the radio. That one's gotten some play. As well as House Fire. House Fire is my runaway favorite on this album. Yeah. Just the same way that he had on Purgatory with Universal Sound, that song, it's just doesn't sound exactly like a country song, but it is.
Yeah.
It sounds frantic, which, is some of his music can sound because, he's done a lot of stimulants, so
hey, no judgment.
No judgment. We don't kink shame here. He's got a way of sounding very frantic with the music, but still almost defeated and also willing to just kind of do what it takes to make it. It's weird how he wraps all those things up in one feeling, but he's very good at kind of conveying all of those at once. When that beat really hits in House Fire, after I think the second or third time through the chorus, just incredible when that pedal steel comes on and the organ starts hitting. I mean, those are the moments for me in music where it just kind of takes you to another level. And when you can do that like he does throughout an entire album, but do it as well as he does on House Fire, that's going to draw me right in every time. And then those lyrics, you know, you can set my house on fire, baby. You can turn it into cinder and smoke. You know, and just the way it's like, instead of saying, oh, you can burn my house down, the way he says that, the way he turns that around and makes it more of an eloquent line, you know, is something that separates him from a lot of other folks.
Right.
Like people that aren't going to have the staying power that he does.
Yeah, no, I would completely agree, because it's the difference between like someone who makes a sophomoric joke about like, oh, that girl's so hot, I'd suck a fart out of her butt and hold it in like a bong hit. And like, that's their very specific way of like expressing how attractive they find someone. He's able to take something like that, like you say, on its face, like you could burn my house down, doesn't really mean anything until he touches it and he gives it that really interesting application where you completely understand what he's talking about. Because I've never heard anyone
that little Appalachian twang on it, you know?
Yeah, little moonshine.
Yeah,
little hit of shine.
He's had some. He was on a episode of one of Anthony Bourdain's shows when he did like West Virginia area or like the Appalachia area, and he played White House Road on it before he was big. They just like had him at this picnic, just picking out an acoustic guitar playing White House Road. And I'm like, who is this guy? That's how I found out about him in the first place. And it's just that's who he is. I mean, that's how he doesn't pretend to be more complicated than he is, but I think he is a very complicated man. I don't think you come up with the themes that he has and the way that he can write without being at least some level of complex. I mean, I feel like you got to have that.
Yeah, and I guess your definition of complexity may vary, but let's put it this way. He isn't the kind of person that gets mass-produced and shoved out into the contemporary chart toppers in country. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He's singing about a little something more than sweet peach tea and a pair of denim cutoffs, you know?
Yeah. You know, but the thing is, he also touches on those same very simple country themes that we were talking about last week as having, you know, that they're bullshit, basically. But I feel like when you have the substance that he does, you can dip into that territory without feeling like it's cheap.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. And then you look at something like it's Florida Georgia Line, baby, you're a song you make me want to roll my window down and cruise, right?
Oh,
yeah, like it's unlistenable fucking garbage.
Yeah.
But the sentiment behind it, my problem is not with the sentiments behind any of these things. My pickup truck, my dog, I won 2 deer head at the Moose Club raffle, whatever the fuck. Like, I love Luke Combs, and he falls into these tropes a lot of the time, but he has a lot of fun with them because the things you're singing about on their face, there's nothing wrong with, like, cute girl, ran out on me, broke down my truck, that kind of stuff. It's just the way that it's applied, the shameless, like, these fucking consumers will eat anything, so just put the slop in front of them in a handsome package with a name like Boone Bennett. And they'll buy tons of tickets. He'll sell out arenas. Whereas you get
is there really an artist named Boone Bennett?
I don't know. There probably is now that I spoke it into existence. Someone will take it and be like, that's fucking brilliant.
We'll be reviewing Boone Bennett next week on Out on That Line.
Sturgill Simpson, produce me as Boone Bennett, and we'll make it intentionally shitty, and everyone will think we're geniuses. It's going to be great.
It'll be like, we could just make it like High Top Mountain without the snark.
Oh, baby.
Now we're cooking.
Now we're eating white bread with nothing on it.
So I think to move on to another song that I thought, as far as lyrically, was really incredible, was Peace of Mind. I'm not sure how...
Yeah.
Yeah, that, you know, the line that really stuck to me, that really kind of, you know, the first probably 5 or 6 lines, you know, you just get a sense of this is a regular old kind of probably coal town, you know, where people are blue collar workers, like just kind of regular everyday life for them. And it says he ain't smoked no marijuana since he got on with the railroad, and he's been on with the railroad for a long and lonesome while. But the day that he retires, he will smoke himself to China. He will leave behind his worries as he races through the sky. And it's like you can tell this guy is just given up a lot to make sure he's taking care of his family and everything, and it's just kind of that, really paints a picture the same way. And I feel like we're going to constantly do this, but the same way kind of Casey Musgraves did with Merry-Go-Round. This gave me that same kind of sense, especially the way in verse 2 when he says she sells Avon to her buddies and saves a little money on the makeup she's been using to hide away the years. And how many people do we know exactly like that?
Yep.
So this song really spoke to me as far as just knowing exactly the kind of life that these folks are leading, and how well it's described, and how I could probably never come close to saying such. They're really kind of brutal things. I mean, that these people have been beaten down, but the way he says it is there's still a chance for them. There's still a chance that they're going to make it out of that.
Yeah, totally. And the reason I got so goosed up when you said that song was when you were like, another song that stuck with me, I had a fucking feeling you were going to say it, because it's just so objectively awesome as a story. The story that this song tells. Can you actually like keep reading some of the lyrics? Because I think with this one in particular, like it's just too good not to like share with people to get them sucked in.
So I'll just read verse 2. And it does read like a poem. He is very good at that as well. Is even without the music, you can tell what feeling he's trying to describe here. It says those two lines been using to hide away the years, and she sits and watches TV, usually every evening, if there ain't some kind of ball game that her daughter has to cheer. So daughter in high school, maybe middle school, something like that, but cheering for the football team, all these kind of really American things, that we're used to seeing on TV. She sneaks menthols in the morning while her family's still snoring, and as she burns the Eggos, she looks back at her life. That heart she broke in high school, he's singing on the Opry. She wonders what the hell that she was thinking at the time. And so she dated somebody in high school that was talented enough to sing at the Grand Ole Opry, which is, for people that aren't aware, is a big deal for country artists. Really any artist, but I think it's pretty much only country artists that sing there. You've made it when you sing at the Opry. So she's sitting there, washing dishes, probably in a dingy kitchen, seeing this guy that she dated and she broke up with in high school. Doesn't sound like he left her. It's just a very real snapshot of life in America for a lot of folks.
Yeah, and it's honestly one of the scariest things to me when I think about all the things that I want to accomplish and like all the things I want to be, all the places I want to go, and how I'm the only one that can really, really fuck that up for myself, and how disappointing that would be if that happened. You hear a line like that and it's like worst case scenario. Your fight or flight response kicks in so hard when you hear something like that, because you just don't want to be that. So it's really kind of interesting. And like the specificity of it as she burns the Eggos and she's, all this other stuff, it just paints such a vivid picture. You can't get away from it. And it's scary as shit, especially this idea of like watching TV every night unless there's something else to do. That's a thought I have all the time. I'm like, I would rather be like, just put me on dialysis. I would rather do that than like watch Simpsons reruns and like Star Trek Voyager and shit like that. Like, holy fuck, it's such a claustrophobic feeling.
Yeah. And I think, he clearly, the way he writes, I'd be honestly very surprised if any of this is ever made up. He probably knew people exactly like this, if not his own family. So I think when you hear these, he's just very authentic. Because he says things like, oh, she burns the Eggos, but that's what it does, is set the scene for you. These folks, are eating Eggos, which are not the highest quality meal. I fucking love Eggos. Don't get me wrong.
Oh, hell yeah.
But, if they were hugely successful folks, they probably wouldn't have Eggos in the freezer. You know what I mean? It's like, it's one of those things where it wasn't necessary for him to do it, but it's one of those little touches that adds to the scene that you're seeing when you listen to the song. And it really kind of brings it full circle. It's one of those little details, like you see the difference between, a Michael Bay movie versus like a Paul Thomas Anderson movie. It's those tiny little details that one will do that the other doesn't, that really can get to your heart, rather than, instead of just being entertaining, Paul Thomas Anderson movie is going to be entertaining and tell you something and give you something to to think about. And the same, I think that's what Tyler Childers does, and artists like him, that's what they do so well, is they keep it simple with their delivery, but the themes and the things that they're telling you, really not so simple. There's a lot behind them. There's a lot to think about when you listen to these songs, especially if you don't know folks like are in these songs. Maybe it's something you need to look into, because it's he's speaking to a part of America and about a part of America that's largely hasn't had a lot of forward movement recently. So when he says these songs, there's also that sense of, these people have been held back. Maybe they've given up because they've been held back so much, because they haven't had an opportunity to really be successful or really do, what their dreams were. She may have broken up with the guy in high school, that made it to the Opry because she wasn't going to be able to go to college or something like that. There's all these things that you wonder about these characters, and because he's so good at describing the scene, you wonder what got them there. It's not just you hear the story and you get out. You wonder how we got there.
Yeah, 100%. And that is a testament to his artistry that we're sitting here right now talking about hypotheticals in this story because we're engrossed in it. So, like, he kind of pulled off the fucking trick right there.
He did it, that redheaded devil.
That sumbitch. He looks like a Deadwood character, dude.
Yeah.
He's got that giant-ass bushy mustache and the super ginger hair.
Oh, yeah. When he gets that Fu Manchu type thing going, oh, man, that's a solid choice for the man.
He just looks like he should walk into a saloon and like throw a coin at the bartender and be like, I need a room for the week.
Yeah.
Barkeep. Don't feed my horse peppers.
Were there any other songs in this album that you particularly wanted to mention, give a shout out to?
No, I think we hit the really big ones for me, the big showstoppers for me. So yeah. And I can't say there was one on here either that I was like, I don't know. I didn't really hit a clunker. I don't know about you.
Nope. I think as far as if you have to pick the weakest song, I think Bus Route for me was probably the weakest one. But
yeah,
that's just because I think it just didn't have as much in it, for me to kind of unpack. I guess it was very, very much everybody like had a crush when they were growing up, when they were little kids. Maybe that worked out for you and you had to sneak around in high school and hook up and stuff, but that pretty much was the whole extent of that song.
Yeah, it's what you see is what you get.
Not a lot to that one. Yeah. Pleasant to listen to, but yeah, not quite up to snuff on the other ones, but still probably better than most people are going to be able to do.
True.
So this one, I think you can probably tell, definitely stream it. Don't skip it. This is a good one.
Agree. Stream it. Go do it.
Excellent. Now, the next album that we're going to get into, Caroline Rose, Superstar. Now, I'm excited about this one. And Alex, first, I want to ask you, how did you come across this album? Because you were the one that suggested it. I just want to know why this one. What were you thinking when you picked this one?
So, a long time ago, I was up seeing a concert with friend of the pod, Tanner, and I saw a poster that was just this girl in like a tracksuit and a headband smoking like a huge bundle of cigarettes all at once. I'm like, this is an interesting little hipster poster. Who is this? And it was for a concert by Caroline Rose, and her album was Loner. It was the album artwork off of the Loner album, which I think was 15 or 17. Those are the two that stick out in my mind. But at any rate, I saw that, and I just remember being interested, and I'm like, I wonder what that music would sound like. And I went back and looked her up on Spotify, and I listened to the Loner album, and it was fucking great. Again, it's a theme I think that's going to continue throughout this podcast, but it was great storytelling. We talk about these lost souls who have kind of lost all their forward momentum. She's got a lot of songs like that off Loner. And so I just really appreciated her weirdness, her sound, and then I found out Tanner, too, had been listening to her independently, and we were both like, we can't get enough of this Loner album. Then she comes out with Superstar, and I remember before I knew anything about the album, I just listened. The first song I heard off it was Feel the Way I Want to.
Yep.
And I was like, all right,
Strong.
Well, this is a fucking anthem. This is a fucking jam. So I can only imagine what the rest of this album is about. Come to find out, the whole thing is a concept album as well. I'm just, in awe of her strangeness, and it's kind of this weird point of pride that she comes from the Burlington area. She was born in Long Island, but her origins are technically Burlington.
Really?
Oh, yeah.
I had no idea.
Does the name Jer Coons mean anything to you?
I've heard it. I always thought he would play in Vermont. He's from Vermont?
He's there now.
Okay.
Like he's Vermont based, and he's at the vanguard of a lot of the acts that are kind of up and coming here. I mean, he was working with Caroline Rose on her early stuff. I believe he's worked with Medela and Cat Wright, and he's just kind of all over the place.
Okay, all the Burlington hits.
Yeah, so I mean, it's not even just like the Ted Bundy thing where it's like Ted Bundy was born in Burlington. Isn't that a fun trivia? She like spent time in Burlington and in the Burlington scene and has connections to some musicians we know. So kind of an interesting point of pride with that. And she's just such a fucking weirdo. And she's made this like strange power punk, electronic, introspective shoegaze bedroom pop sound.
How do you even describe it? Yeah.
How do you even describe it?
Yeah, I don't know, but I dig it. Whatever it is, I was fully into it this entire album. I mean, from the word go, it was incredible. I think the first minute and a half or so of the opening song, "Nothing's Impossible," I was just like, "Oh, this is nice, pleasant," and then that beat drops when she says, the line, "And above me, written in the stars, reads, pause, beat drop, the future," and I was like, "Whoa!" Just immediately, whoa. And it just doesn't stop from there. It's just like you were riding waves the entire album. It just really was a pleasant experience. I gotta say, I listened to it like 4 times. It was really, really good. I think it just, this feeling I got from the first song, and I wrote it down because I was like, well, let me go back to this after I listen to the whole album, see if I still feel like this is accurate. It feels like if you're in LA on like a warm, rainy night is what this whole album sounds like to me. So all of the kind of, if you follow me here, all the neon that you're driving by, all that stuff, it's got kind of that streak to it where everything's a little bit blurry. Mm-hmm. That was the kind of sense that I got listening to this album. I was like, this would be a great one if I was depressed walking through LA at night and it was raining. It was just like that that's what it gave me as a feeling. And then as I listened to the album, I was like, yeah, this all just fits together. This all just works.
Well, and thematically, yeah, the whole thing is basically about craving stardom at any cost and delusion and disappointment. And so very much to the aesthetic you're describing, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
You can see yourself going to a shitty audition and then they basically tell you have no future in the industry and you walk out of there and it just pours on you while you're walking down Venice Boardwalk or something. I don't know LA landmarks, okay?
I've been there twice for work. No big deal.
I'm from New York, all right? I'll tell you where to get the best bagel in the Bronx, but I don't know shit about LA, so don't test me.
The other thing I noticed, and we'll get into specific songs because there's some jams on here I definitely want to give some shine to. The bass lines throughout the entire album, just so much funk, so much groove.
Oh yeah.
I was grooving the whole time. We listened to it in the car for the first time on the way over to Houston. We went over to visit the fiance's family this past weekend, and it just, the whole way over, just bopping. I couldn't really hear the lyrics that well because I don't have a very nice car and it was very loud on the highway. But the music, I could tell that bass line was just, everything was very tight. It was a very well thought out album. There were all these little touches, these little shimmers with a synth, these little tiny little riffs on the synth that were just thrown in that might just happen once in a song. But it's all those little tiny pieces that she found a way to put together that throughout this whole album, I felt like it was just like I was in a movie the whole time. It was great.
No, definitely. And I dig what you're saying about the bass too, because I'm thinking specifically about potentially my favorite song off the album. And it's Do You Think We'll Last Forever? And the bass line on that one, just that dum 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 boom 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 boom. But like, oh, it's so fat. I love it.
I have a line that I made a note that said baseline present and accounted for on that particular song, because it just is so good. It just, if you can't, I'm going to steal a line from, I think it's an old Pepsi commercial. If this one doesn't get your foot tapping, check your pulse, because you might be dead.
I'm unfamiliar, but I'll give it to you. I'll give it to you and Pepsi. Yeah. I like it.
And then that song particularly, we can use that as the jumping off point to start getting into particular songs, because that one struck me as like, girl, you're a little creepy.
Yeah.
You know,
I just love the way she
loose.
like organizes the weird shit she does with like stretching the phrasing and the words. So it's like, I won't even try to like do the falsetto, but like rhythmically, do you think we'll last forever? No pressure though. Please just tell me yes or no, dude. And like the way that she will like stretch these, like the word impossible, she can just stretch like 8 different ways without you not understanding what word she's saying. You know what I mean? I love Elvis Costello, but sometimes he bends the phrasing on stuff and you have no idea what he's talking about. And it's
but
like,
because he wants to pronounce it a certain way.
yeah, he's like, oh, I've got too many syllables for this verse, so I'd better like grandfather it into the next one, and it all kind of bleeds together in certain instances. It's not like a chronic thing, but I can't. I have to go a little hard on Elvis Costello, or I'll lose credibility with you. So,
yeah. So you're getting me on your side. This is exactly what the Overton window is shifting.
it's an 89-point plan I've got.
Yeah, you're not seeming quite as extreme as you used to be. So I'm starting to think, hey, maybe I can fit in there. You know,
I'll get you in that false sense of security.
And I think this song, you don't really get the sense in the first two in either Nothing's Impossible or Got to Go My Own Way that she's really kind of unhinged a little bit.
Mm-hmm.
Both those songs are kind of the, I'm leaving, I'm going to take my shot. Like, you can't stop me. I'm powerful. Like, very much, oh, she's going to move to LA. She's going to get famous. Like, she's going to get it. And then you get to, do you think we'll last forever? And you realize that she's got some delusions, and I think the line that really kind of turned it for me, where I was like, oh yeah, she's got some problems, is I'm all right, it's just a heart attack.
Yeah, she's deeply insecure but has like wild so like, to me, it's something I know well. I think she like the character, and I guess it's, by the way, she, being Caroline Rose, has said the character is a they them, so I apologize for saying she, and it's just I'm thinking of Caroline Rose, but the character, they, to me, almost come across as like manic a little bit, because I understand what it's like to have those wild swings between like, I can own the world, I should be running the world, no one has their shit together on the way that on the level that I do right this moment, and then like the next day you're like, why did anyone listen to me? I'm stupid garbage. Leave me the hell alone.
And I think, obviously, have not tried to get into the acting scene in LA or the music scene really at all anywhere. But I can imagine that there's a lot of folks that this is not a unique frame of mind for a lot of folks. You know what I mean? So I feel like it's a good snapshot into the mind of somebody that has grand ambitions, but doesn't really know how to get there, and maybe is a little self-destructive. Not even maybe. We know she's a little self-destructive.
Admittedly.
Yeah. And another line is, it's hard to tell between love and panic in the first place. And she's kind of begging this person to stay. It's like, no, I'm not totally crazy. I'm just crazy for you.
Spin zone.
It's that kind of feeling that I get, and it's the I can definitely almost see her doing like the swirly eyes from How I Met Your Mother, but it didn't put me off at all. It was definitely an off-putting subject matter with this and several other songs on this album, but it didn't put me off from wanting to listen to it. I was engrossed in what was going to happen to her, and I felt like, or happened to them. Sorry, I'm doing the same thing you were doing.
Yeah, it's a learning curve.
We'll get through this, because I interpreted it as it was Caroline Rose as the character. So you saying that it was not her, it was a character she came up with, and they're they them. That's new to me. So we're gonna work this out together, folks.
It's a character that Caroline Rose has admitted is largely based on her. She just chose to make it a they them, I think, to make it more universally accessible and kind of equitable for everybody. which I
Got it.
applaud. Good for her.
Got it. And another one in this song with that beat drop. There's the interlude kind
Yeah.
of towards the end, and then they drop that beat on you again. And she is so good at doing that. She does all her own production, right?
Mm-hmm. And I mean, she's talked about how she'll do her own production, and then inevitably someone comes in and tries to change it, which is a lot of what she talks about on this album. Is like there's all this pressure to, especially on like Feel the Way I Want to, not to hop around too much, but this idea of you have to be one thing or another, or we don't know how to market you, is a big theme that runs through this album and through a lot of her body of work. So a long way of saying, yes, she does her own production, but I think frequently has been undermined in the past. So I think that fueled a lot of this album and a lot of the themes on it.
Well, I will tell you, I really feel bad for anybody that thinks they're going to undermine her
Yeah.
in the future on that stuff after this album. I mean, I don't know what anybody can say that they're going to do better than she can do on her own.
Yeah,
'cause
don't
this
be a
was
big
great.
time dummy.
Yeah. And we can certainly move into Feel the Way I Want, because I know you mentioned you like that one. I put a star next to that one. Is definitely one of my favorites on the album. So what do you got? Tell me.
Oh, I mean, quite frankly, I'd rather turn that truth ray back around on you, because I kind of appreciate it on the level of everything that I said, which is it's kind of about this idea, and again, not to song hop, but in much the same vein as Gotta Go My Own Way. They're both kind of these anthems about people are going to try to tell me what to do, but if I lose my authenticity in the first place, then what am I really doing here? Adding that on top of all these other insecurity issues, it's just kind of a theme that resonates throughout a lot of these songs. So you can appreciate it on that level, but then at the same time, it's just a fucking absolute jam. Like, try not to dance around to it when it comes on. You could be in a moving car, seat belted in, and I hate to break it to you, but you're going to crash your car because you're going to dance to the song. You can't not.
Yeah, I mean, it's you just, if someone's going to tell you that not to dance, you just got to say, "But baby, watch me freak out," like she does in this song.
Yeah.
It is, again, I can't tell you how excited I am to talk about this album, because it's not like really anything I'd heard before, at least in this sort of context.
Mm-hmm.
I'd heard plenty of that, kind of electronic melodic music, like Churches, a lot of the old EDM artists that really used to be big, so I'd heard a lot of kind of somewhat in this genre, but never a concept like this, never something that was a theme running all the way through an album, not certainly, not, I haven't heard anybody in this genre of music doing that. I've heard plenty of rock bands do that kind of thing, but nobody in this genre. And hearing this, it was a totally different experience for me. With Feel the Way I Want, you can tell that stardom is really starting to weigh on her, and she's cracking a little bit. She's been cracking in the songs before this, or they've been cracking in the songs before this, and they're going to give up trying to please everyone, is the sense that I got on this one. And with the title Feel the Way I Want, and how often it's repeated in the song, that is the sense I get, is she's basically saying, screw off, I'm going to do me. I've got the talent to do my own thing. I don't need to listen to you. And I think it speaks to what you were talking about. I think this is one of those ones where she's kind of referencing the folks that are trying to undermine her ideas a little bit. Is that correct?
Yeah, and I also think to that end, there's a lot of false confidence to it. That repetition, feel the way I want to, feel the way I want to feel. I feel like that is almost the character, and for lack of a name, we'll just say the protagonist. Like, I feel like that's the protagonist having to reassure themselves, because they don't actually believe that. They don't actually believe that it's permissible.
Okay.
Like, because it's, I think part of why the whole album, for me anyway, works is because there is this kind of intense, bordering on creepy stuff. Like, do you think we'll last forever? Looking for a lot of reassurance, has a lot of these like issues with delusions and overconfidence. But there's this undercurrent of vulnerability that runs through the whole thing that is what buys you all the goodwill. So I just kind of think a brilliant thing she does in every song is you can take it as an anthem 100%, but you can also take it as a small part of the whole where you see this insecurity kind of peeking its head through. So yeah, she's saying, fuck it, I'll feel the way I want to, or they're saying, fuck it, I'll feel the way I want to feel. But do they actually believe that? And it kind of
Yeah.
keeps you guessing until you get to the end.
Yeah, that's a good point. I think I was taking everything at face value with what she was saying and everything. So hearing a little bit deeper thought into it is good and definitely makes sense. I mean, that is perfect.
Well, Geoff, I do have an MFA in screenwriting, so I am pretty much the smartest guy alive. So,
well, one of the smartest I know. So,
shucks.
I know a lot of people, so it's got to count for something.
Hey, thanks.
Yeah. So, we had on the Tyler Childers album, we had Ever Love in Hand. On this album, we have Freak Like Me. And there are certainly earmuffs for any young ones that are listening here. They don't need to know about these things quite yet. It's definitely a bit stripped down musically compared to the previous songs, but I think that's because she wanted there to be a focus on what she's saying, because it is kind of shocking, the stuff she's talking about. It's about, in my perspective, kind of falling in love with somebody that maybe isn't so good for her. And there's certainly some BDSM stuff going on that she's into, with some of the lines. My love is a skin tight suit, a tattered overcoat with steel-toed combat boots, and things like that. Again, she paints that picture for you. And you're like, oh, that's definitely like a dominatrix type situation that's going on there. And it's subject matter that you don't hear in popular music.
Mm-hmm.
You never hear about, other maybe Rihanna talks about that kind of stuff, but it's, but it works. It's not, you hear it and it doesn't feel like she's trying to shock us. She's being very honest with the feelings, and if that's shocking to you, then that's a personal problem. It's not, I don't think it was written in a sense to shock anyone. It's to open a door into someone's psyche and their vulnerabilities.
Well, absolutely, yeah, and it's all loaded with double meanings. The whole skin-tight suit thing, it can be like, okay, yeah, it's a latex Catwoman Zentai kind of thing, but also it's kind of saying a lot about the way in which this character, the protagonist, is going to love this person. My love is a skin-tight suit. It's claustrophobic. It's suffocating. Maybe I don't really know how to love people, because a lot of these songs thematically deal with the same thing, which is like, holy shit, I'm enamored of you, but then when the bloom is off the rose, things get tough. And this song kind of reminded me of that same exact set of themes. The steel-toed boots, it's all of that kind of imagery can be very erotic, but at the same time it can reveal a lot about the way that the protagonist either chooses to love or historically has shown love, and furthering the ways in which they're vulnerable.
Yeah, and I think it really is kind of a good bridge between Feel the Way I Want and the rest of the album, because it's really, Feel the Way I Want, you can sense they're kind of going into a breakdown, and then Freak Like Me, you can sense they're really kind of self-medicating, maybe not in the best way. They're trying to find themselves in the wrong kind of places, and then it just seemed to me like it was like, oh, they're willing to be vulnerable again, but it's it's just not in the right ways. You're uncomfortable with the way that they are trying to do that. And I think it really, the feeling of the song is very kind of dark, the way the music is. And I think it's, certainly meant to be that way. But it is just, with the subject matter, it's just so interesting. How much she can pack into it. And when you read the lyrics, you're like, oh man, that's some kind of really, really wild stuff that they're talking about, but it doesn't really feel out of place. It feels like it's all part of this journey for our illustrious protagonist.
Well, and to jump on your Rihanna thing too, when Rihanna sings about whips and chains excite me, you believe that, and you believe it on its face, and it sounds very exciting to her. But I almost feel like, with the, like you said, the dark sound of the music and that like tinkling far off piano and some of the things that are being sung about, this concept of you're a freak like me, I don't think is an entirely like positive, excited thing. It's not like, oh, I found a kindred spirit who likes nipple clamps and candle wax as much as I do. It's more like, oh, I've kind of met a kindred fucked up spirit, And maybe that's the thing that unites us, but it seems like an awfully toxic thing to bind us.
Yeah, I found someone to spiral with.
Yeah,
basically, is kind of how I looked at that. And I think that this, Freak Like Me, I think is the feeling of that is going to be a little bit more like the rest of the album than the songs previous to it were. As we get into Someone New, first with Someone New, we get back to those jams. We get back to those sweet, tasty jams that she is so good at putting together. I think this one is kind of more an empowerment song. She's going to get revenge by being successful. She's like, oh, you want somebody new? Okay, I'll go ahead and become somebody new. You might leave me, but I'm going to make you regret it. I was confused whether the protagonist meant that when they were becoming someone new that they were trying to get that person back, or they were just trying to kind of rub their face in that they don't have them anymore. Maybe you can give me a little more insight on that.
Well, and as always, it's all completely interpretive. And I think even when an artist comes out and says like, no, this is definitively what it is. And or people close to the artist, like Courtney Love has always maintained that Heart-Shaped Box is about her vagina. And Kurt Cobain was like, no, it's about little kids getting cancer. And then I can hear something and hear a completely different meaning in it. So obviously that's a caveat that everything is open to interpretation. I sort of, I guess, took it more as the best revenge is living successful. Mm-hmm. So it wasn't necessarily, I want this person back, but I want to make them grovel by becoming successful, showing them what they could have had, and they'll come crawling back, and then I get to say, no, fuck you. Was sort of how I interpreted it.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
A little bit of you saw the grass isn't always greener, is it?
Don't make me fuck around and turn into the old me.
All I can think of is the Bugs Bunny cartoon where he's holding like the shotgun.
I can't remember. Oh, this is such a tangent, and I hate to do inside baseball, but Tanner texted me, and he was like, oh, I had this delicious grilled cheese from this new local place. Looks like I'm going to have to start taking lactate pills again. So I just sent him the meme of Bugs Bunny with the gun. Being like, Lord help me, but it's time to turn back into the old me.
Just the way Bugs Bunny is looking down, he's like, I'm so disappointed in myself, but gotta light all these motherfuckers up.
Such a great meme.
Such a good one. And I guess we can just keep this cooking, moving right along. Pipe Dreams. I thought this one was pretty strong.
Yeah,
I like this song quite a bit. It seems like her significant other, their family is saying, this girl's bad news. Like, you don't want anything to do with her. From what I've heard so far on the album, perhaps the family's right on this one. So seems like they kind of fight, start over a lot. We all know these couples that are just so toxic for each other, but they think, oh, but we're going to go on this trip together. It's going to fix everything. Or we plan this vacation. We're going to get back to ourselves. We all know that couple. And then a month later, when they're back living in their normal lives, they can't handle it, hate each other, pots fly, whatever you want to do. She's like, forget about that seed of doubt they planted deep inside your head, is one of the lines she says in this one. And it's so descriptive because I think she's so good at delivering the feeling that the family's right, that they're probably correct in saying, and maybe they know about, the significant other that they're toxic too. Maybe they know it's just a bad idea for those two people to be together. And you just get the sense that it's like, here's this defiance that in other songs you're thinking, oh, this is a good thing. This means they're going to make it. They're going to be successful. They're going to do it. And then this defiance here is that they're not willing to come to terms with things about themselves. That they're not willing to see that they're a negative influence on a lot of folks around them. That's the feeling that I got about this one. And it being Pipe Dreams, that saying, is kind of like things that aren't going to happen. You might really want that, but it's a pipe dream. It's not going to happen. So them fixing things is a pipe dream is kind of the sense that I got from this one.
Yeah, I agree with that. And then also it was like all the things that are being listed are pipe dreams. Let's go to Acapulco, all that kind of stuff are all pipe dreams that I think are distractions from the big overall pipe dream, which is I'm going to make it. That's starting to feel like a pipe dream. So I'd rather fantasize about all these other things I could be doing. Let's get rich and buy our parents' houses in the south of France kind of shit.
Yeah.
So yeah,
I'll be successful if I can just do this thing, you know?
Yeah, and even just like alternatively, I can completely turn my back on success and just go fuck off and sell turquoise jewelry in the Southwest. And there's a rich tradition of that in like something like Rent. They talk about let's open up a restaurant in Santa Fe, where the characters like obviously aren't going to pack it in, but at this point are maybe having like a dark night of the soul. Where do you press on with the way things are going? Can you find a new way, or do you just give up entirely? So it's kind of an interesting crossroads song.
Yeah,
for how subdued it is.
It is a very, there is a very big, there's a lot in common with this song and so many others, like you were saying, building a restaurant in Santa Fe, buying houses in the south of France for our parents, that kind of stuff. I'll buy you a garden. All these songs have all of the, it's just like, I'll do this thing for you and it'll fix everything. We see it in movies, TV shows, it's this big gesture. It's like, this will fix it. But what you're not addressing is who you are as a person and your flaws and how they're affecting other people. And I think there's a lot of denial, and there's a lot of in that, and you can interchange that with defiance. You can kind of, depending on which lens you want to look at it through, neither are good. But it's this thing where it's kind of these pieces of this character seem to be kind of falling away and falling apart. The longer that they are trying to make it and trying to be successful, the further away from that they're getting, it seems.
Yeah, no, I would agree. I think it's a good analysis.
Yeah.
King.
Yeah. So there's a few more songs on it. Command Z, this groove. This song just grooves.
Yeah.
I don't know how else to describe it. It gave me a really kind of Calm Trues feeling. The way this one was, Calm Trues or Churches, those bands that are just that kind of very melodic, atmospheric electronic music.
Yeah.
Really like this one, and specifically the lyrics. I'm really glad you brought up earlier how she adds syllables, to a word to stretch it out or shorten things or not fully pronounce certain consonants, things like that, just to make it fit. I felt like this song was the best example of that, because you read the lyrics and you're like, none of this should really make any sense. The meter is all off from line to line. It doesn't have the same amount of syllables. You can't figure out, in poetry, you have your A-B or A-A-B-B, depending on your rhyme scheme and how you set those lines up. It doesn't seem like there's really any sort of organization to it. It seems very much like prose. But then you hear the song and how she sings those words, and they all fit. She puts them in that rhythm, and everything fits together, and it all makes sense.
Yeah, it's controlled chaos. That's like what that whole song in a nutshell. And to me, it's another one of those fight or flight moments too. Mm-hmm. Like, okay, fuck. How do you take back any of the mistakes that were made? How do you undo this? That chaos is reflected, like you said, in the meter, where nothing should work, but it does. In lesser hands, the whole thing would just collapse in on itself like a land squid, but she doesn't let it happen.
And it's, clearly, she's on a bad trip on this one. Yeah, she's, there's a lot of drugs that have been consumed. I think some trying to find themselves has been going on. Just the outro, God, I just don't want this to end. Undo, I'm going to do it again. It's that feeling when you're, having a long night. Maybe you've done some things other than drinking and smoking, and you're starting to come down, and you're thinking, maybe I don't want to yet. But it's this kind of, you can feel yourself in that spiral where it's never going to be as fun as it was, but you so don't want to be out of it that you're willing to do anything to stay in that. And it's just, that's the kind of sense that I got from this one. It's just, and also the way it ends is, if you can do this, if you can, doesn't finish that line, so it just seems like this is a song where it doesn't really have an ending. It's just kind of giving you a little more context in that this person is on their way down.
Oh yeah. We're getting real loose at this point in the album.
Yeah. The bottom of the barrel, it's coming up fast. Rock bottom is on its way in a hurry. And I like this one. One, the music drove drew me in immediately. And then when I read the lyrics, I was like, what is this supposed to be? And then when you hear the lyrics and see them and see how she kind of works those around, that to me was really pretty masterful. I really think she did a good job with that on this one. We'll go quickly through the last 2 songs on the album. I realize we spent a lot of time on this album, but I was very excited.
I'm glad, man, because I got to be honest. When I suggested it, I was like, this could go either way. He could be like, this is just like electronic horse shit, or this is really good. He'll see what I see or he won't. So
yeah,
it was a big gamble for me.
Yeah, and I think this album, I think, is exactly when we were thinking of doing this podcast and hearing new music and learning new things. This, obviously I didn't know about this album before, but this is the perfect representation of why I'm doing this podcast, is to hear things like this that I never would have thought of. You couldn't have probably, if you could have talked to me when I'm 75 years old and say, hey, did you ever end up listening to Caroline Rose? And without this podcast, without doing this with you, I don't think I ever would have. Not saying anything bad about her or anything like that. It's just there's so much music out there. I don't know if I ever would have come across this. I'm really glad I did. I'm really glad I did. So moving on to the penultimate song, Back at the Beginning, this bass line, again, tasty little groove.
Mm-hmm.
Just I don't know if she was a bass player first or if that's a main instrument focus for her or anything like that, but she knows her way around a rhythm. She knows how to build that, and then so everything else just sounds good. There's such a good foundation in every song, that those musical themes, that everything else, she just can layer so many little things in and out of it, and it all will still make sense because that rhythm is solid.
Yeah.
And she just is such a good job of doing that.
Well, and I don't know if she actually plays like the bass proper, or if she just, like you say, has kind of an aptitude for that rhythm. But I do know that she wrote this entire album while she was touring for Loner. So she'd be like set up in a green room before or after a show, and she'd have her own little like mobile recording rig, and she would just fuck around. And she actually wrote all the songs too in the order that they appear on the album, which I think is kind of cool. Like that's the order she came up with them.
So she knew she was going to do a story, and then just wrote it front to back, just like that.
And then it just like came out of her in this order. I dare say she's prodigious. I mean, like that. I don't see a lot of like normal, so-called normal musicians, if they can be called normal, who approach it that way and then have it come out as amazing as her album came out.
Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to try to think of any off the top of my head. I think she's just very strong. I think she deserves her own spotlight. So I think comparing her at this point is probably not going to be fair to her, because I don't know what to compare it to. I just know I really, really enjoyed listening to this music.
Yeah.
And I think this line in Back at the Beginning, I think, is the line of the entire album that I think is her strongest one. Drawing out 2 parallel lines, one moving forward and one back in time. And it's the sense I got is, a person standing there and just doing exactly that, one moving forward and one going back in time, but that person can't go anywhere. Because you're trying to draw both these lines, you really can't move forward or back. You're just stuck right there. And I guess it's good that maybe the downward spiral is paused. But it's also, you get that sense that they don't know where to go. And I certainly don't know where to tell them to go. I think it's just, at this point, I think that realization of the fact that they're probably not going to make it, and that this is all might be for naught, I think that's really setting in here.
Yep, definitely. Yeah, and it's interesting when you hear Caroline Rose talk in interview about the themes of the album and this concept of who would want to be famous. Like, what kind of person would want to be famous, like can't walk down the street without getting mugged famous? And why would you want that? And what's appealing about that? And that's sort of what the whole album is. It's an experiment in letting her ego kind of take her through how that might realistically go for her. So yeah, it's been fictionalized for this character, but she sort of challenged herself to create this worst case scenario. And that's I think what I admire the most about the whole album. I probably said I admire something else the most, but I've changed my vote. It's just this, like, with no judgment on herself or on the concept of being famous, she just does a thought experiment as an album. How would someone with my personality and my bugaboos handle this level of fame, or in the very least, the pursuit of that is the goal? If music and self-expression are no longer the goal, it's just to get famous, what would I do, and what kind of person would I look like if I made that my driving force in life? That's kind of what I like about it.
Well, I think we have plenty of examples of exactly what kind of person that turns you into.
Yes.
You know, there's plenty of folks that are famous on their merits of their talent, you know, the businesses they started, whatever it may be, but there's plenty of folks that have become famous and do everything they can to hold on to it. I'm not going to do any name dropping of any folks I have in mind in particular here. I have a few, and I'm sure when I say this, the reason I don't say specific names is because I know when you're listening to this, you're going to think of some that fit that bill. They may not be the same ones that I'm thinking of. And I think it's the reason that these songs can connect so well is because you see those folks that they exist. You've seen the end of the line for this character. You know, it's a tale as old as time. You know, you go to Tinseltown and it eats you alive. You know, there's so few people that are really able to make it, and if they're there for the sole reason of being famous, they're not going to be centered enough in themselves to be able to handle that. You know, the folks that get famous based on their talent generally have the center to know how to handle themselves in that, you know, and not let themselves get too out of hand. And this character doesn't know how to do those things. You know, they've lost. You know, if there was a reason why they wanted to be famous or a real talent that they had, which I think doesn't really ever get mentioned here, what it is that they went there for, you know? You don't know if it was an actor or a singer or a model, you know, whatever it might have been. I assume probably musician, given that it's a musician that wrote it, but you don't know that for sure. It's never mentioned specifically. So it's without a basis of why you want to be famous or what you're going to bring to the table when you are famous. There's going to be no substance there. So you're going to have to sell really pieces of yourself in order to keep that. Whether that's by doing way too many drugs or, you know, trying to, you know, make shady deals to try to make, you know, to get yourself more screen time, whatever it might be. You know, you're not going to be a person that you can be proud of if that's your goal. You know, and I think this character went into trying to get famous without a real plan other than just being famous. And I think you're seeing throughout this album them kind of losing those pieces of themselves in order to maintain that. And I just really, I don't know, I really was floored by the storyline of this album. And I have a question for you specifically, you know, kind of now that you've taken in the whole album and everything. I got the sense that you could really, she talks about significant others a lot in this, you know, in a couple different ones. But maybe that significant other is just fame itself.
I could see that. I'm like, my brain is doing like A Beautiful Mind right now, where I'm looking at like all the lyrics on a chalkboard in my head and drawing those parallels. I mean, yeah, you could make a strong case for that. So you obviously have something locked and loaded for coming up with that. So what in your mind was the first time you realized, like, maybe this whole thing is about her toxic relationship with her own desire to be famous?
So I think it was the last song. It was the I Took a Ride song that she says, you know, I took a ride on an airplane, I took a ride on a train, took a ride on a Greyhound bus. You know, to me, that was all the ways that you get to LA. You know, those are the ways that everybody does it. And then the chorus is to find my baby, because I know someday I'll get my baby back someday soon. And this whole album was the character trying to be famous, trying to get famous, getting little touches of it. So those little touches of it were the songs like Freak Like Me, where it's like, oh, maybe if I do these things, I can get famous. And then those were the things she was doing or they were doing in Freak Like Me. You know, I think hold on, just need to get the names of the song here. And in Back at the Beginning, you know, it's that feeling where they're stuck. You know, they're kind of in between their peaks. So they don't have, and it's just, I think it's interchangeable. I don't know if that's if that's correct at all. Maybe it was just specifically a real physical person that she was talking about with these significant others. But to me, I was like, you could really put fame itself in place of that, because of how toxic it was, how toxic of a relationship she had with it.
Yeah, I mean, you could definitely do that. And then, like, as I hear you say that, it could be this idea that maybe these are really, actual people. These are other characters that they are interacting with. But at the same time, there's this looming kind of metaphorical specter. I almost said sphincter. A metaphorical sphincter. I can't fucking talk anymore.
Like I said, we don't kink shame here.
Yeah, exactly. You leave me and my metaphorical sphincter out of this. But the specter of this desire to be famous and this relationship with fame looms large and is its own relationship. It's just not with a tangible person. Mm-hmm. And when you talk about those last lines, like, I'll get my baby back, is the baby the dream? You know what I mean? That dream of fame. Like, okay, I fucked up this round, but I know I still got a shot. Is it continuing that delusion? Like, I will get this specific dream, or is it I will find my dream? I thought this is what it was. This turns out not to be it, but I know my dream is out there. I don't know. But I definitely see what you're saying about the whole thing largely being about her relationship with fame personified. I would 100% buy that. In fact, I'll probably go listen to it again with that in mind.
Yeah, and that's so when I talked to you, yesterday when we were kind of just on the phone, just catching up quickly about what we're going to do. Actually, I think it was Saturday, whatever. That's why I listened to it. I told you, I was like, yeah, I think I'm going to go back and listen to it again, because I don't think I really got out of it what I wanted to, is because at the end, I kind of had the realization that maybe she's talking about, fame itself is the abusive relationship or a toxic relationship that they have. And then I went back and listened to it again today, reading through it all, and it really kind of fit. I think it's one of those things where, maybe she didn't mean it that way, but it doesn't matter, because it's I think when people write music, there is a certain amount that's left up to us to interpret and what it means to us. And I felt like it really landed a little more for me if we weren't talking about physical people and more of the concept of fame itself as being the thing that destroys the character.
Yeah, I mean, you've given me a lot to think about, Geoff. No,
that's
but
why we're here.
In all seriousness, yeah, that's an interesting way to think about it, and so I think I need to sit down and listen again. I listened to it like 2-3 times today, but I got to go back and I got to think about it with that frame of mind, because that's a really interesting interpretation of it.
Yeah, it's a bop. The whole album is a bop. And I will say, final words for me, please go listen to this. I mean, absolutely, please go listen to this. If you can have an area where you can really hear the lyrics, that'd be preferable. But I'm telling you, great cruising music if you want to just turn it on for that. Great music to just bop around, clean the house to. I mean, great music, just sit on your headphones, maybe smoke a little joint, lay down outside, put some headphones on, just listen to this album. It is great. Yeah,
definitely. For me, it's a like peak joint in the headphones album for sure.
Oh yeah.
Best
put your
enjoyed
head right between those speakers. Oh yeah. Truly good album.
Stream it.
Right. Yes, absolutely stream it. So for our second segment today, we have decided to go with cover songs. I don't know what really brought this up for me, but I realized that I have co-hosting with me the lead singer of one of the best cover bands that I've ever seen. And it may sound like I'm just paying lip service, but I'm telling you folks, Laser Dad, very, very good. Very talented musicians all the way up and down that group. When Alex was there, I loved watching him. So when we're talking about cover songs, what, for you, Alex, what do you look for? What makes a good cover song? Or when you hear a song, what makes you think that one's going to be a great one for us to do?
Well, and in the interest of full disclosure, too, with the whole Laser Dad thing, I don't want to take credit for Jesse and Eric's hard work. I am no longer with the band because I moved to New York. So I just wanted to, in case they listen, not make it sound like I'm taking credit for their present body of work. In terms of what makes a good cover for me, I am one of those people that looks for it to be a complete reinvention. That to me is a really successful cover because, I mean, when I was with Laserdad, because we were doing a big grab bag of 90s hits, you would want to sound as close to Rob Thomas and Santana when you're doing Smooth as you can. And I would even do like little tiny riffs sometimes, and it wouldn't feel right because the whole point was just to be as faithful as possible because people came to hear what they know. And so there's definitely a school of thought with covers where it's like, hey, make it what people came to hear. It's got to be what they know. You don't want to get too wild with it. But I personally happen to love when people just take the original concept and stretch it as far as it can go before it becomes totally unrecognizable. Jacob Collier is like an experimental, I mean, talk about music that's hard to categorize. I would say almost like experimental electronic acid jazz, but I'm not even sure if that's accurate. But it's he does a lot of really crazy experimental shit with his music, and he does a cover of All Night Long. Is that Lionel Richie or the Commodores? All Night Long.
I think it's Lionel Richie.
Okay.
I think that was later. Yeah.
Okay. Well, he covers All Night Long.
We can stand to be corrected. That's fine. We know he was involved in some way.
We'll put the official Out on That Line Lionel Richie asterisk next to it. We reserve the right. But yeah, so Jacob Collier does a cover of All Night Long that sounds almost nothing like the original song, and yet is completely recognizable. And there's such a magic in that for me. So and that's on the extreme end, but I guess I kind of look for what did they do to honor the original but make it new and exciting, so I've got some variety here. So that's just me. What about you?
Yeah. I'm kind of torn. I do like hearing a faithful cover of a classic song just because I think certain songs deserve some sort of, to be put on a pedestal a little bit. And to hear, a contemporary artist cover an old song, I think is just more of a tip of the cap. So to me, if they do a really faithful cover of it, it's just them saying, yeah, this song was so good, we didn't need to change anything. And not saying that changing something wouldn't also produce something good, but it's just that sense of, I don't really consider one better than the other. When we talk about reinvention versus, faithful cover. But, I think it just depends on the song and what the message the artist wants to convey. For something like a cover band like you were in, I think there is that need to have a faithful cover because people are coming there expecting to hear something. But, if an artist wants to just do a cover and release it, there's a whole different ballgame of things they can do with that. So with that in mind, kind of thinking about those two different versions, I decided for this segment, we would bring, a faithful cover, or not necessarily our favorite one or one we think is the best, but one that I think, that might be just representative of what we're talking about here, as well as a reinvention. I feel like the reinventions are going to be ones that we're a little more passionate about. But I'd like to, get started with you.
Okay. So one, and maybe this is arguable, but I'll submit it nonetheless. The one for me is Hurt, originally performed by Nine Inch Nails and then later performed by Johnny Cash. I think it's a faithful cover on Johnny Cash's part. First of all, a lot of people are always like, oh, Nine Inch Nails covered an old Johnny Cash song. And I'm like, oh, okay, well, agree to disagree there because that's not true.
Yeah.
But I think when Johnny Cash came along and did his cover, he didn't have to change a ton because for a lot of the stuff that Nine Inch Nails could do, this like driving, industrial, like someone once described it to me as like a robotic spider building other robotic spiders was their sound. I'm like, that's very specific, but okay, I take the point.
Yeah.
So like they really kind of eased back on that like driving industrial sound. And it's this very sad, introspective, almost emo sound to it. And Johnny Cash took that basic structure and then just put classic Cash warble over it. But it was the fact that it was at a time in his life when he was grappling with his own mortality that gave it so much power and so much meaning. So he didn't have to reinvent the wheel to make it completely his own. So they're two completely different songs that really aren't arranged or even sonically that different. So I see it as a faithful cover that somehow not to shit on, Trent Reznor wrote that, right? It wasn't Atticus.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was Trent Reznor. Yeah.
Okay, yeah. So I don't see it as shitting on Trent Reznor to say, like, Johnny Cash elevated it. I'm sure he looked at it the same way. A legend took what I wrote and managed to turn it into a juggernaut. So
I remember, getting the American 4 album that this one was on. It was the Man Comes Around album. And because I always grew up listening to Johnny Cash, Ring of Fire, all those old songs, Jackson. My dad had the Johnny Cash records, so I'd listen to those all the time. Loved them. And so I was a big fan of Johnny Cash, and I remember got this album at the mall at FYE, if anybody remembers that store. Bought this album with my dad one day, and then we put it in, and we heard Hurt. I didn't know it was a cover at that point. I was just like, wow, this song is heavy. This song is dark. This song is, he's basically, knows that he's dying soon, basically. And how soon, I don't think he knew, turned out to be very soon after this song
7
was
months.
released. Yeah, I mean, it was really quick, before the award season. So I remember when the awards started to happen, and there was, I don't know if it was the Grammy or VMAs. I'm not sure which one it was. But when that buzz started coming around for this song to get one of those awards, they asked Trent Reznor, well, what do you think about that? And at first he said, well, I was mad at first, that he took this very, very personal song. I mean, that subject matter is, if you write that is putting that out there is really takes a lot of bravery. So if somebody just decides they want to cover that song, I can understand him being skeptical about that with it being so personal. But he said once he heard it, he realized that wasn't his song anymore, that was Johnny Cash's song, and he realized that he wrote it for Johnny Cash, without really knowing that. And I think, just that time period with what that song represented and then what happened to Johnny Cash, a very short time later in that music video. I don't know if you watched the music video along with it, but it's just really bleak. There's not a lot of hopefulness there. He's got June in the video with him.
She's fucking crying the whole time, yeah. Or about to cry.
Yeah, because she knows what's coming soon, and she knows, and I think that was real because she knew what song he was recording, and it's like that was his swan song. It just happened to be somebody else that wrote it. But really, great choice. Really good choice. I mean, that's one of the most beautiful covers I think that has ever been done.
Yeah, no, for sure. It's visually arresting video, haunting quality of just considering everything Johnny Cash is thinking about in that moment. It's the same way, like, I get choked up thinking about Warren Zevon doing his cover of Back in the High Life when he knew he was dying. He completely changed the meaning of that song. David Bowie writing Black Star right under the wire before his death. I mean,
nobody knew about that one.
Yeah, exactly. I
don't think it got released until after he had passed away.
I think it came out, if I'm not mistaken, it came out like the day before his birthday or on his birthday, and he died the next day. So he did get to see it released, but he didn't spend too much longer with us after that.
Yeah. And it's weird how, all these, you always want to talk about time as a flat circle, things always come back around. It's like how music can be so, connected with so many people that you can have a song like Hurt, or a song, like any of those that you just mentioned. And it's just somebody else wrote those songs, but they meant something so deeply to another person that when they covered them, they totally embodied it. They may not have written it, but it was their song at that point, and it's just amazing how music can do that, the emotions that it can elicit, to allow those things to happen. So it's just, really, really good choice. I love that song. That was one of the ones I almost picked.
Oh, really?
for my faithful cover. I went with Nothing Compares to You, the Sinead O'Connor version. Yeah. I almost decided to go with that Chris Cornell version that he did live. But I decided to go with the Sinead O'Connor because that was the one that I was most familiar with. Originally the Prince song, then she covered it famously on SNL. And that was the performance that I thought of when I was thinking of the song I wanted to pick, because it's really, if you listen to the Prince version, it's a pretty stripped down song. There's not a lot of big guitar theatrics and things like that like Prince can normally have. So it really does lend itself, I think, pretty well to be covered, because Prince is just so far and away a better musician than so many other folks that covering his songs, I feel like is pretty tough to do. And it's pretty rare that you get one that is so simple. And really, he didn't have a ton of songs where he put so much kind of sadness in, without really any sort of tongue in cheek to go along with it. He had so many songs where, obviously he's bummed about things, but there's always this tongue in cheek element where he's kind of thinks he's like, well, you may piss me off, but I'm still better than you, kind of, in a lot of his songs. But it's this one in particular, you can tell he's really bummed, because nothing he does will ever compare to the person he had, and then you can tell when Sinead O'Connor sings it that clearly she's drawing on something of that same, from that same pool, from that same source. And it's just really kind of cool to hear, really I'm not talking bad about Prince, but objectively a better singer than Prince is, as far as vocal ability, really sink their teeth into that song. Cause I feel like it drew even more of that emotion out of it that you maybe didn't get in the Prince original.
Yeah, and I think it's another case of, Trent Reznor and Johnny Cash. It becomes that person's song. I'm a big Prince guy, and I think of it as a Sinead O'Connor song.
Yeah.
I don't think it's a strong entry in Prince's catalog, but I think it's an insanely memorable song when she takes it on. Because there again, I think you're right. You just feel her connection to it, whatever it is. It may not even be another person she's singing about. Could be, I'm sober now, but nothing compares to fucking whiskey,
Yeah.
Who knows? I don't really, I've never looked too far down the Sinead O'Connor rabbit hole. But no, I totally agree. She was able to take from Prince and make it her own, which is no small feat.
No small feat at all, because I will die on the hill that Prince was, at the time that he passed away, he was our greatest living guitar player, and probably one of our greatest living musicians.
Yep.
And it's was really sad to see him go. I mean, I remember the day that I found out he passed away, and I was working for a hotel in the middle of a reservations call. And I saw it. Naturally, I was scrolling on Twitter, while I was on this call at work, and I saw Prince died, and I kept scrolling, said, no way, this can't be true. And everybody was saying it, it wasn't just TMZ. It was all the actual, like, CBS, ABC were tweeting it. And I got choked up. I couldn't talk anymore, and I had listened to Prince a lot growing up. I just didn't, I guess, realize what kind of impact that he had on my musical taste, on really my life, until he passed away. And I realized, shit, I'm not going to hear anything more from him. He might have stuff that they'll release after, which I think they have.
Yeah.
Which, I think was against his wishes. So I haven't listened to any of it, because I'm like, I don't want to listen to anything. He was so particular about the songs that he released and how he released music, that I felt like it's almost disrespectful to listen to the stuff that his estate put out after he died, knowing that he didn't want that to be the case.
Well, in some cases, it's just such a blatant cash grab. They'll just re-release, like, oh, it's the original master of this track or whatever, and it's like it's the same exact thing. You're just charging people more money for it. And there's some worthwhile posthumous stuff. It was an album, I forget what it's called off the top of my head, but it was like his version of, it was songs he wrote for other people that he then did himself, like Sex Shooters on there. Famously popularized by Apollonia 6. But anyway, it's so there's some stuff that's come out after his death. There was a live concert around the time that 1999 had just come out. I think it was Rochester, New York, or maybe Buffalo. I don't know. So there's some stuff that's come out that I'm like, as a Prince fan, I'm like, I have to dive in. This is too tasty. But that's listening on Spotify. It's not buying the Black album, which he famously changed his mind on like 90 times because he thought it was cursed.
Yeah.
It's not going out of my way to buy a new pressing of something that he didn't stand by. And to be quite honest, I'm a collector, but he was so prolific that law of averages, some of his stuff was not good.
Yeah.
A lot of his output throughout like the 2000s was not great.
Yeah. And I think that also had a lot to do with he was doing some heavy opiates for a long time. Yeah. So I think that never helps anybody. You know, that might it might help you at first feel a little loose and really let some ideas flow, but you know, it gets to a point where that obviously overtakes you. It did for him. And I think, you know, it's sad, you know, that we don't get to we don't get to hear any more new stuff from him, because I think about the world the way it is right now and the things that he might have to tell us, you know, or maybe just help us ignore it, help us escape from it for a little bit, you know. And I think, you know, it's just sad that he's not around anymore. I'm glad we have versions like Nothing Compares to You by Sinead O'Connor that takes his songs and kind of elevates them a bit, so we can really understand him as a person a little better, you know. So I'm grateful for things like that.
Yeah, me too. And I know we had talked about, I'm being a little cognizant of time, but I know we had talked about covers that maybe aren't quite so faithful. And the two that I zeroed in on were both Prince songs. So
what do you got?
The first one is a collaboration between Warren Zevon and members of REM, who recorded together in 92, maybe? I don't know off the top of my head. But they got together in the 90s, had a couple drinks, saw a couple things, and got together and recorded some songs. And they do a cover of Raspberry Beret, and it is fast and loose. And it's recognizably Raspberry Beret, but as done by Warren Zevon, which, if you don't know who that is, probably doesn't mean much, but it's got that like loose anarchic sound that he has on something like Werewolves of London.
Yeah.
Whereas like Prince was trying to like lay you down and make sex to you with his voice. Warren Zevon is just like, I stole your car, I'm going to drive it off a bridge with the Raspberry Beret.
Have you seen my cocaine?
Who has the cocaine? Warren's got to have his, Papa's got to have his sugar. But, so I love that one because it's just, and I'll send it to you too. It's a very like, it feels a lot like something you, me, and the guys would do after a couple pops out at Reno's or something.
Yeah. Yeah.
We were like, this would be a good idea if we just put this cover together right now. And it's not sloppy, but it's also not the most like precise, technically excellent thing. It's what you'd expect from, you know, rock stars who've had a few.
Yeah. Well, that I like that sometimes, that spontaneous kind of, you know, let it rip mentality that some of those guys will have. And what was I think I know what your other one is going to be here.
You sure do. It's Mutoid Man and Baroness covering Purple Rain for the program 2 Minutes to Late Night. You can find that one on YouTube. Highly recommend it. We should link to it. It's fucking great. It's metal as all hell, but it's technically excellent. And it just takes you by surprise because it starts and you're like, the guy's voice is pretty generic. This is so low key for a metal band. How's this going to work? And then it clicks into that second verse and they take off and you're like, okay, never mind. People know more than I do. I should have just shut the fuck up and watched the video.
It was awesome. When you sent me that one, and it was great. I think I was really surprised because I've heard a little bit of Baroness, so I really knew a little bit about what they sounded like. And when it started, I was like, this is not Baroness. Are they just straight up just playing this song? Because I was like, this doesn't sound, if they're trying to do a faithful cover right now, I was like, this does not sound like a good one, you know. Because, and then like you said, that second verse hit and he started really jamming. I mean, that rhythm guitar really picked up, and I think, you know, it just turned into almost a punk song. They turned Purple Rain almost into a punk song. It was just really good.
It was great, and they have like great facials and great showmanship, which I realize doesn't necessarily contribute to the quality of the song, but taking it in as a performance, just watching these like metal goons in their sleeveless tuxedo t-shirts, you know, and like you said, they just punked the fuck out of the song, but it was still like they, on top of that, somehow had tight harmonies. Emily Lee, who I believe now plays with Shearwater out of Austin. But she was on keys, and then it was John Baisley from Baroness who was playing lead guitar, and then the rest of the rhythm guitar, drums, and bass were the members of Mutoid Man. So it was the guitarist from Mutoid Man, John Baisley, and Emily Lee doing the harmonies, and they were tight. They weren't like overly complicated, but they were these tight harmonies that just, they would all stop playing, and then they would hit this crisp 3-part harmony and then launch right back into this like fever dream metal. And it's just little touches like that were just so, it's peak musicianship. How can you not appreciate it?
Yeah, they just flipped it right on its head, and it was still just as good.
Yeah. So
So for mine, for the one that was kind of a total reinvention was, and maybe we got to start asking Sturgill to write us some checks or something, but on the Sailor's Guide to Earth album by Sturgill Simpson, the cover of In Bloom that he does, the Nirvana song, it's completely slowed down. It's just piano. Everybody has heard In Bloom by Nirvana. So the lyrics, as soon as you start hearing the lyrics, I didn't know that he covered that song. I think I bought that album when you were still living here in Austin, and we listened to it that day that I bought it. And I think when we first heard that song, it kind of clicked. These words sound familiar, but it doesn't sound at all like the original version. I mean, there's no distorted electric guitar. There's no real driving drum beat to it. It's just a completely new take on it. And I certainly highly recommend that whole album, but definitely if you only have the time for one song, In Bloom is great on that one. And it fits. The funny part is it fits right in musically with the theme of the whole album. There's this very nautical theme to it. You'll hear, like lighthouse bells and ship's bells throughout the whole thing, and seagulls squawking in certain parts and stuff. So it's very much, it's a concept album itself as well, of him telling his son, how the world is going to be, telling him, keep it between the lines. Don't do what I did. Don't get busted selling drugs at 17 and have to join the army, like that kind of stuff. And it's just all these things, but he takes a cover song and it fits perfectly right in with the album, at least musically, and then you can kind of adapt the themes of the song to really fit the rest of what he's saying on that album. It's just kind of really clever the way he did it.
Yeah, no, I completely agree. And as like a big Nirvana guy too, and to fit in with covers that Unplugged that they did from New York City, where he covers not only Where Did You Sleep Last Night, which was he turned it into a heroin addict anthem. It was.
I almost picked that one too. That was like number 2 on the list after.
Yeah. I thought about that, and I was gonna do a pair no matter what. I was gonna do that, and then The Man Who Sold the World, because I'm also a big Bowie guy. But I'll be the first person to tell you that Kurt Cobain's version kicks the shit out of the Bowie version.
Oh, that riff is incredible.
Oh my god, dude, it's hot, tasty.
Yeah.
So I'm like big Nirvana guy, and it's like you said. You bought that album. We turned the speakers facing out onto the patio. We were grilling fajitas, and we're just having a time listening to that song, listening to that album. And that song came on. I remember us being like, "I think this is this cover of In Bloom, isn't it?"
Yeah.
And I immediately was on the defensive. I'm like, "How fucking dare you? This song rocks so hard. What have you done?" But it became immediately apparent it was this like cosmic honky tonk cover of it, and you have no choice but to fall in love with it. It's amazing. It's great.
Yeah.
It's just this like languidly paced, really kind of just slow jam, country, cosmic surprise.
Yeah, it's really all you get is the bass line. That's the most consistent thing throughout the song, and obviously his voice, and it does pick up a little bit towards the end. He kind of swells it up like he does, orchestrally, like he does on some other songs on the album. But it's just that take on it is just really clever. I think there's so many options we could have picked for all of these covers. I think that's why this was such a good idea for a segment. So, everybody out there listening, let us know what your favorite covers are. Everybody's got them. If you have ones that you think we haven't heard of, we'd certainly love to give people a shout out if you got a good idea. And at worst, you're going to let other people know some good stuff to listen to. So I think, this is such a good subject that we could definitely come back to this on a later episode with more options. I don't think this is one that we necessarily need to do just one segment. Maybe, a few months down the road, we can come back and say, well, let's get some more covers in here. Let's or look at it through a different lens.
We'll do top 5 or something like that.
Yeah, top 5. And really kind of dive into it. Or maybe we'll just do that as a standalone episode. All options are on the table here for us. So I think what we have to do now, I think we have to wrap this one up. I think we really shot way past what we were trying to do timing wise, but we're just going to blame it on us and really enjoying talking about this stuff. So I think for me, we'll kind of quick recap. Caroline Rose Superstar album, absolutely listen to it. Tyler Childers Country Squire album, absolutely go listen to that. 2 very different experiences for you. And then for cover songs, I mean, we've given you a few here. You let us know what ones you might want to hear. Keep an eye out on social media. We do have all our socials now. I'm sure many of you listening to this have already been followed and bothered by our stories, by our tags, all this stuff already. But you'll find us on Twitter at outonthatline, the number 1, and on Instagram just at outonthatline. Either one of those, great way to get a hold of us. We do have our episodes just on SoundCloud for the first one, but by now we should have this up on Apple Podcast, Spotify, all the hits. So look for us on those. Let us know if there is anything, burning in your mind that you want us to talk about. We really want to get some feedback and really start to kind of build this a bit as a community. We don't want to talk about just the things that we want to talk about. We want to make sure that this is still interesting for folks to listen to, because we want more ideas. We want to really build this thing up. And that's going to require your help. So we really appreciate, the feedback that we've gotten so far. We're recording this on a Monday. We've just released our first inaugural episode today. We've had a lot of listens, a lot of good feedback. And it seems like people are maybe as excited about this as we are. So that it's really kind of an exciting time for me. So Alex, any closing remarks?
Yeah, to echo, definitely just contact us and let us know what albums you've been listening to or what albums you'd really like to hear us talk about. I know I would like to kind of find a good balance between when I log a pick that I'm really enthusiastic about or something that I've been meaning to listen to and haven't gotten around to yet, but I'm just as enthusiastic about taking something that I would not find on my own and bringing it to the table, so it's a completely new experience for the two of us. So write in and tell us what you guys are looking for. And I guess other than that, if I can leave you on one note, because Bill and Ted Face the Music came out. So party on, dudes, and be excellent to each other.
Oh, that is wonderful. And until next time, our Out on the Line fam, this has been Jeff Greenmore with Alex Koch. We'll catch you on the other side.